We've had a very long relationship since the early 90s, and we're good friends. I mean, he's like a brother. So the collaboration is something that we learned as basically kids, 20-year-old kids. And then we grew into men. I know that in my life I've used humor to try to cope with things that maybe haven't gone so well. And I see that in movies, and I'm always charmed by it. So I like that. I like seeing it. I like the potential of it. And when I read a screenplay, I always joke with Darren because I say, you have no humor in your films, none. And then slowly but surely you're seeing a little bit of humor here and there, or at least those little moments that take you away from that narrative, the darkness of what he's trying to do, or the theme, and then you have a little bit of breath from it. And maybe humor is that way to get that breath. No, you have to do story. I mean, we're bound as cinematographers. We work for them. We work for the story. If you miss on a beautiful shot, you miss on a beautiful shot. But 9 times out of 10, you can make that beautiful shot work for the story. And make it beautiful. Maybe it makes it beautiful a little differently. But I don't, style over substance is incorrect. I think we should never do that as cinematographers. If we want technique, if we want beauty, if we want something, you have to justify it within the narrative. You have to. Whether it be within the narrative or whether it be attached to the character's arc. You have to find something that justifies it so that the film has more resonance. You can't just do it because it looks good. Commercials are a completely different thing. Commercials are about fitting something into 30 or 60 seconds. And commercials are about selling, But I have to say, it has such a negative connotation, commercials, because you're selling this thing and you're dealing with branding. I think that each one has the potential to be a little bit of a film. And there's beauty in images. And it's a different discipline and skill set, but you can still do good work. Maybe it doesn't mean as much because ultimately you're selling something. But I see spots all the time that actually have resonance, that are good little films. And so I don't discount them. I actually enjoy doing them, and I enjoy watching them. But it is a different mindset, I think. I don't have to justify anything in a commercial as much as I need to know I'm creating an atmosphere. No. In fact, I think short form should be short form. Short form is beautiful because it's not narrative storytelling. We have television. We have, 13-episode TV shows that people binge watch on Netflix. We have movies that last 2.5 hours, all telling us stories. Music videos, commercials, the short form, that should be art. We should be, as cinematographers, as creators of images, we should have the ability to make something else, take a break from the burden of making a story happen. And not it's a burden, but it is a burden because that's what you're doing when you're a filmmaker, you're just telling a story. Whereas you have a music video, a short form thing, you have something else to do. You can make it a beautiful series of images, so when you walk away, you come out with a feeling. You weren't necessarily told a story, but you came up with a feeling and maybe an attitude, So I think that's an opportunity to do something other than storytelling. I don't think we should always do stories. I'm a big believer that music videos specifically, they should aim to be art. I mean, from a lighting standpoint, that film was a lot of how do we light and move the camera the way we want to move it, And how do I maintain this sort of directionless lighting, this lighting that's sort of ambient from anywhere. Coming up with that was a tough thing. And knowing that I was backing into performances where the camera was going to move around her when she was doing her performances, all the ballet sequences, whether she be in rehearsal or whether she was actually on stage performing, it was big challenges. And it ended up becoming quite fun because we didn't have the money to do things in a big way. So, shooting at SUNY Purchase, which was a university up northern New York, Westchester, I literally would use their stage lighting and just sort of move it around and figure it out and maybe re-gel it. It was kind of reminiscent of how we made pie, where we made pie out of necessity and things that we didn't have. We created the stage show out of things that we didn't have. I just used what was existing and then I tried to make it work. So that was really, I think that's so satisfying for me. When I read Requiem for a Dream, it was already, it had the beginning, middle, and end, and it had 3 seasons. So for me, I I already had a structure to work off visually. I had a foundation to say, you know, the film's going to start in a very warm summer in New York. It's going to transition to a very cool fall, eventually into a very cold but green winter. And that was the base of the visual language there. The addiction part of it, just it's, you know, you trust Darren's. That's where he pushes the third act, and that's where you're really going to feel the addiction. So we knew when we were making the film that we were building up to this third act that was going to be very harrowing. But we were younger and more aggressive back then, and I think we're a little, you know, we're older and a little more mellow these days. They evolve because you're learning every day. I mean, you know, I've shot a lot of films, but I learn. I learn from the different filmmakers that I've worked with. So my values, I mean, yeah, maybe the core values stay the same about what I think film is, what it communicates and what its potential is. But I'm learning. I'm open to it. Even on commercials, I see how people direct, or I see directors talk to actors, and I see how actors act and how they respond to me, and I'm learning from all this stuff. As far as cinematography stands, we should be forwarding the form. We should always be pushing forward the form. So that's a responsibility to stay up on what's happening and how people are shooting films and how people are telling stories visually. And we should continue to forward the form. Maybe some of that's dictated by technology and the digital cameras and this, that, and the other, LEDs versus, you know, tungsten lights, incandescents. But we need to push as cinematographers. The young cinematographers should push the older cinematographers, and the, you know, middle-aged guys should push the older guys. We should push each other to forward the form. That's kind of just a belief I have. And storytelling-wise, I think, I said it earlier, you know, everything I do has to be justified within it. So that you're left with a piece that's actually a cohesive thing where every element has been in servicing the story, and then you walk away from it being a unified piece of work. Oh, I love shooting in the streets. I love the streets. I just like being in the street, the messiness of it all. You know, it's exciting. Being in the middle, you know, just shutting down 2 blocks. Or stealing a shot on the sidewalk. Or going into the subway. That's my favorite thing. I like practical locations. I mean, it's fun technically to do a stage. It's comfortable there. People got nice chairs, and you know, everything's close and it's clean. That's great. But I prefer being out in the streets. Well, that's what we do. We light. Lighting is part of what our job is to balance that light at levels that match our exposure, or have an exposure that matches our light levels. And you tailor make it, knowing where you're coming from, where you're going in your scene. You just tailor make it. It's an arduous process. That's why I worry about these cameras. I worry about false color. I worry about the histograms. I worry about waveform monitors. You need to get into a scene. You need to light the scene. You have to, and then it has to be consistent. Because if I go this way and I go this way, I want to know that I had a certain light level on you. I want to know I have a certain light level on me. And I want to know that that wall is going to be that bright and that wall is going to be that bright. And in a wide shot, it all makes sense. So in Black Swan, I meet it at all. Like, I just set levels, painstakingly set levels from one room to the other. And I would, you know, that's what it required. And that's what it requires to be a cameraman. Well, you know, that's a good question. I think it's extremely important. I think you need to be a filmmaker, you need to have interests, and you need to have knowledge of other things, or else what kind of storyteller are you? You know, if you're a lit major or whatever. But I do think that film school is important, though. Somehow, some way, people are getting educated just by reading. You could read, you go on the internet, you get interested in whatever, just educate yourself in something, and some things, be interested and pursue those interests. Or else you're going to be a pretty bland filmmaker, ultimately. But that being said, film school is important. So somehow, some way, and the reason I think that, and so many people used to say, I don't need film school, I have everything I need. Well, you need the community, is what you need. You need the community, because if you don't have a community of people that you can work with, you can't make a film by yourself. As much as people try, you can only go so far when you're by yourself. So you're not a soloist. You need a community of people, and that's what that affords. So bridging the gap and then sort of balancing out interests and your learning of film and having that community, I think, is important as a young filmmaker or as a young aspiring filmmaker. It's work. Because I was too lazy to do psychology, to be quite honest. And that was what I was interested in at the time. I wanted to be in psychology. And I did sociology because I actually was interested in film. So I took communications because I was taking film classes. So I thought, okay, I'll just water down my education by, because I was interested in films already. But I wanted to do sociology. I just wanted to make sure I had something else that I knew. And because I didn't know where this film thing was going.